My name is Aria. My life was never a fairy tale. I grew up without luxuries, learning the value of hard work and honesty in every detail of my modest home. When I met William, I thought I'd finally found a place where my essence would be valued. I was wrong, so incredibly wrong. The dinner at William's parents' house. I still feel a knot in my stomach when I remember that night. William's parents' house was imposing, filled with expensive paintings and a heavy silence that seemed to swallow any genuine laughter. The crystal chandelier's light reflected off silver cutlery, but to me, everything there had a false gleam. I was nervous, my hands sweating, trying to look at ease in a dress that, despite being my best, seemed too simple for that setting. William, beside me, seemed to shrink, swallowed by his mother's dominating presence. "Mom, this is Aria. She has a small tech company," William said, introducing us. Suzana just smiled with her eyes, but it seemed like a fake smile. "Aria, dear," Suzana Gordon, my mother-in-law, said, her voice echoing through the dining room, cutting through the lukewarm conversation about the weather. Her eyes, previously focused on William, now pierced me. "William told me about your business. It's so peculiar." She smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes, as if she were looking at a child displaying a poorly drawn picture. I tried to breathe deeply, feeling the thin air in the room. "It's a Centech. We work with technology solutions, software development." She waved her hand dismissively, cutting me off. Yes. So modern. But let's be honest, it's not something for someone in our family, is it? William needs someone with more stability. Someone who understands the weight of a surname, of a tradition. My face burned. I looked at William, pleading with my eyes for some defense, a sign that he saw me as more than a nuisance. But he stood there, motionless, his gaze fixed on his plate, as if the salad in front of him was the most interesting thing in the world. The knife and fork seemed heavy in my hands. "My background is humble, Suzana. I never denied it." My voice came out firmer than I expected, but with an almost imperceptible tremor. "But my dignity and my work are as valid as any tradition." She chuckled, a short, cold laugh. "Dignity doesn't pay the bills, Aria. And it doesn't build a future for William. Let me be clear." She gestured to the butler, who approached with a silver tray. On it, a white envelope. My heart pounded. William is a good boy. He deserves the best. And you, Aria, unfortunately, are not part of that best for him. She picked up the envelope and held it out to me. "Here's an amount, $50,000. It's not a fortune, but it should be enough for you to start over. For you and your peculiar company. Just get out of William's life. And out of our family." My eyes welled up with tears, but I refused to let them fall. That envelope was a slap to my soul, a testament that I was disposable, worthless. She thought $50,000 would buy me, but I was never for sale. The silence in the room was so thick I could hear it. William finally looked up, his eyes wide, but he didn't say a word, didn't make a move. He was an accomplice, as guilty as his mother. And his betrayal was even worse. My hand trembled as I reached out, but not to take the check. With a sudden movement, I pushed the envelope back onto the table, making it slide across the white linen tablecloth. The soft sound of the paper against the table seemed like thunder in my ears. "I don't need your money," I said, my voice choked, but with a conviction I didn't know I had. The words came out like a cold breath. "I never did. And believe me, you'll never see me again." I got up from the chair, feeling my legs wobbly, but anger gave me a strange strength. That crumpled check, a symbol of my humiliation, lay there, discarded. My heart pounded erratically. I needed to go. I needed to get out of that place that reeked of rottenness disguised as wealth. Before turning my back, my eyes met William's. He looked at me with a mixture of shock and something that seemed like shame. There was no regret. I picked the check off the floor and crumpled it in my fingers. Humiliation had a face, a name, and an address. I left the dinner, his luxury, his family, and, most importantly, William behind. I walked out the door, feeling the cool night air envelop me, a contrast to the suffocating heat of humiliation that burned inside me. With each step, the pain mingled with a cold anger and a determination I had never felt before. The first few days were a blur of tears and despair. I isolated myself in my small apartment, the curtains drawn, the world outside seeming as distant as my own happiness. The memory of William letting all the chaos happen without saying a word was what hurt me most. I thought we were made for each other, but only then did I realize I was never important to him. But suddenly, amidst that emotional chaos, a spark. Shame turned into fuel. That humiliation would be my starting point. It wouldn't be my end. Ascend Tech, which until then was a timid project, an idea I cherished with passion but without much capital, would be my answer. It would be my revenge, not in the form of destruction, but of construction. I started working with an almost feverish intensity. My apartment became an office, my bedroom a meeting room. Nights blended into days. I drank coffee like it was water, and with each sip, I felt a new wave of energy. Every line of code I wrote, every email I sent, every client I contacted was a brick in the construction of my empire. I remembered Suzana's words, how she doubted my ability. That propelled me forward. With every no I heard, every door that closed, I remembered that dinner, and it gave me the strength to open 10 other doors. Ascend Tech, which was once a small budding flower, began to blossom. I sought strategic partnerships, people who believed in my potential and my vision. I invested in talent, in people who, like me, were passionate about technology and innovation. And most importantly, I focused on quality. Every project was an opportunity to show what we were capable of. I remember one project in particular, a complex system for a logistics company. The deadline was tight, the challenges immense. My team was exhausted, and so was I. There were nights when doubt knocked on the door, silent, trying to bring me down. I'd find myself staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was strong enough. But then, the image of Suzana's cold face would appear in my mind, and a fire would ignite in my chest. I couldn't fail. Not for me, but to show them they were wrong. That week, I slept less than 4 hours a night. I led with firmness, but also with inspiration. I made coffee for the team, listened to their concerns, solved problems. With each obstacle, I felt the adrenaline course through my veins. On delivery day, the tension was palpable. When the system went live and worked perfectly, the relief and joy I felt were indescribable. The team hugged me, and I felt I wasn't alone. Ascend Tech wasn't just a company. It was the materialization of my resilience. It was proof that I could do more than they imagined. I was no longer the fragile Aria who cried in the car. I was Aria Edwards, the CEO of Ascend Tech. Recognition began to emerge. First, small mentions in tech blogs, then articles in industry magazines. I started receiving invitations for talks, for important events. Every time my name was pronounced with respect and admiration, I felt a small prick in the Gordon family's pride. Their world was small, and mine was expanding. Time, which once seemed to drag, now flew by. Years passed in the blink of an eye, and Ascend Tech ceased to be a promise and became a consolidated reality in the market. Our projects became benchmarks, our clients, long-term partners. The company grew exponentially with modern offices in different cities, a talented team, and an impeccable reputation. And I, Aria Edwards, was in charge of it all. Life is full of twists and turns. Or would it be more accurate to say that when you bounce back, twists and turns find you. I started hearing subtly at first that William's family company wasn't doing well. My contacts in the market, people I did business with, commented on falling sales, loss of big contracts, difficulty adapting to new technologies. The once untouchable Gordon company was in decline, and the contrast with Ascentech's overwhelming success was striking. One day, I received a message. It wasn't from Suzana or William, but from a mutual friend who, with an almost whispering voice, asked if I could talk to William's mother. I politely but firmly refused. There was no reason for a conversation. Then a phone call came. The unknown number flashed on my cell phone screen. It was William's mother's voice. That haughty tone, which once intimidated me, now sounded strangely less imposing. "Aria, my dear," she said, with a false sweetness that gave me chills. "How are you? I heard Ascentech is doing very well. I'm happy for you." A knot formed in my throat. That woman, who once publicly humiliated me, was now trying to reconnect with empty words. "I'm well, Suzana. Ascentech is thriving indeed. But I believe you didn't call just to ask how I am, did you?" My voice was professional, distant, without any trace of the vulnerable young woman she had known. There was a pause on the other end of the line, a heavy sigh. "Well, yes, Aria. The truth is, our company is going through a delicate moment. We need a new partner. Someone with your expertise." I remained calm, my breathing slow and controlled. "I understand. Well, Ascentech is always open to new partnerships, Suzana. But the process is rigorous, as you can imagine." Of course, she said, her voice a little more hurried. "Would a meeting be possible?" "With William too, of course. He'd very much like to see you again." An almost imperceptible smile appeared on my lips. William would like to see me again? Suddenly, the memory of the crumpled check and his passivity flooded me. The same William who allowed his mother to humiliate me and did nothing about it, didn't even try to reach out to me after everything. That same William wanted to see me again. What irony! I can schedule a meeting with my sales team. They'll do the initial analysis. If there's interest, then yes, we can talk. It was a maneuver to show that I was in control, that they would have to prove their worth. She accepted. "Right. I understand. Thank you, Aria. Truly." I hung up the phone and felt a mixture of satisfaction and caution. Victory had a bittersweet taste. I tasted justice, but I knew I couldn't let emotions get the best of me. I needed to keep a cool head. Ascentech was my creation, and I would protect it. A few days later, I received a formal email. "Dear Ms. Edwards, Gordon Enterprises hereby expresses its deep interest in establishing a strategic partnership with Ascentech. We believe that the union of our expertise can generate significant results for both parties. We kindly request a formal meeting to discuss the terms of a possible collaboration. Sincerely, William Gordon." The tone of the email was one of need, not offer. The formality contrasted with the memory of that disrespectful dinner. I accepted the meeting, but on my own terms. I chose the date, time, and most importantly, the location, Ascentech's main meeting room. The day of the meeting arrived, and I felt a different electricity in the air. Ascentech's main meeting room was a spectacle in itself. Modern, with glass walls offering a panoramic view of the city, the room exuded power and innovation. The large, polished solid wood table comfortably seated 12 people. Ergonomic chairs, a state-of-the-art projection system. Everything there exuded the success of my company. The floor-to-ceiling windows let in the afternoon sun of an autumn day, illuminating the environment in a warm, yet imposing way. I was there, sitting at the head of the table, wearing a well-tailored suit that gave me a sense of power and confidence. My hands were clasped on the table, and I controlled my breathing, waiting. There was no nervousness, just a serene expectation. I felt ready. Years of hard work, sleepless nights, overcoming challenges, everything had brought me to this moment. The soft sound of the door opening announced their arrival. Suzana and William. They entered the room, and the contrast with the memory of that dinner was shocking. Suzana, who once exuded unwavering arrogance, now seemed smaller. Her hair, which I remembered as always impeccably styled, was a little disheveled. The wrinkles on her face seemed deeper, and her eyes, which once held a glimmer of superiority, now revealed tiredness and a veiled concern. She tried to maintain her composure, a forced smile on her lips, but the makeup seemed unable to hide her exhaustion. William was beside her, and he was a shadow of the man I had known. His suit, once impeccable, seemed a little rumpled. He avoided my gaze, his shoulders slumped, an aura of discouragement around him. The man who was once the center of my universe, whom I once loved, now seemed to have shrunk. Aria, my dear, it's been so long. You're radiant. Suzana forced a smile, extending her hand. The smell of her expensive perfume, once associated with something unattainable, now seemed nauseating to me. I stood up, but not to hug her. My handshake was firm, professional, without emotion. Miss Gordon. William. Please sit down. Let's get straight to the point. My voice was calm, controlled, with no trace of the Aria of the past. William, his voice low, almost inaudible, finally managed to look at me for a second. Aria, it's good to see you. Your company has grown so much. I merely nodded, a restrained smile on my lips. Yes, William. Ascentech has indeed been performing well. But we're not here to talk about that, are we? Tell me what brought you here. Suzana cleared her throat, trying to regain her composure. She began to speak with difficulty about the company's financial situation. She mentioned the loss of contracts, the difficulty in adapting to the market, the accumulated debts. Her voice, once so authoritative, now sounded like a muffled lament. William, in turn, supplemented the story, visibly embarrassed. He spoke about the need for a contract with Ascentech, our reputation, how crucial our partnership would be for their company's survival. I listened attentively, without interrupting. Their every word, every detail about their company's decline was like a note in a silent symphony playing in my soul. There was no pleasure in their pain, but rather a deep satisfaction in seeing that the universe, in some way, had corrected a wrong. Finally, when silence filled the room, I leaned back in my chair, with a look that mixed satisfaction and authority. The afternoon sun streamed through the window, illuminating the room and, ironically, highlighting the pallor on their faces. I understand your situation, I began, my voice calm and clear. But I remember a time when my company's dignity and my own were not valued. Do you remember? The silence in the room became dense, almost painful. Suzana and William cowered, as if I had struck them with lightning. Suzana's eyes widened, and William looked at the floor, unable to meet my gaze. The humiliation they had inflicted on me at that dinner was now back for them, reverberating in the air. Suzana tried to speak, her voice trembling. Aria, we made mistakes. We were arrogant and unfair. I'm so sorry. For everything. Her words were low, almost a whisper. It wasn't the apology I had dreamed of hearing for years, but it was the closest I would ever get. William raised his head, his eyes moist. I should have defended you. I was a coward. Please, Aria, if you can help us. I stood up and went to an elegant bar in the corner of the room, where there were glasses and a bottle of mineral water. The soft sound of water filling the glasses broke the silence. True value, as I learned, isn't in money or origin, but in dignity and the ability to rise again, I said as I poured the water. You taught me a valuable lesson that day. A lesson that propelled me forward. I took a glass for myself and turned to them. Today, I offer you a sip of my victory. I extended the glasses to them. Suzana and William exchanged glances, the humiliation of the past now etched on their faces. They took the glasses, their hands slightly trembling, the water seeming heavier than the most expensive wine. Ascend considers partnerships, I continued, my voice firm and determined. But not based on favors. I'm sorry to say, but at this moment, we are not interested in forming a partnership with you. But here is something to help you. I handed them an envelope. When Suzana opened it, she turned pale. A check for $50,000. Both were speechless. Then I completed, here's an amount. $50,000 is not a fortune, but it should be enough for you to start over with your peculiar company. They were stunned. They heard the same thing I had heard years ago in that dining room. There, I was closing a cycle. I definitely didn't want any ties with those who humiliated me when I wasn't successful yet, and only sought me out because they needed help. They hadn't regretted their attitudes. They had apologized with the intention of getting my help. That $50,000 wouldn't make a difference to me, much less to my company, but it helped me put an end to this story. Ascend continued to prosper, expanding its horizons and solidifying its position as one of the largest tech companies in the country. That day in the meeting room, I felt the satisfaction of someone who built something grand from pain. They taught me that the best revenge is overwhelming success. Thank you for listening to Aria's story. What would you have done in her place? Tell us in the comments, we really want to know. If you like this story, please like and share this video to support us in bringing more inspiring stories, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any stories. See you in the next video.